As you may or may not have heard, today is a sacred holiday called International Trans Day of Visibility. This is a day set aside to specially affirm, acknowledge, recognize, celebrate trans people. And it's good that we have a day like this because there are not enough days on the calendar specifically dedicated to honoring people who identify as LGBT. I mean, all we have right now is International Transgender Day of Visibility, and also Lesbian Visibility Day, April 26th. And International Day Against Homophobia, Transphobia, and Biphobia, May 17th. And of course, Harvey Milk Day, May 22nd. And Pansexual and Panromantic Visibility Day, May 24th. And obviously Pride Month in June, followed by Bisexuality Day, September 23rd. And then obviously Bisexual Awareness Week, September 23rd to September 30th. And National Coming Out Day, October 11th. Pronouns Day, October 16th. National LGBT Center Awareness Day, October 19th. Spirit Day, October 20th. Intersex Awareness Day, October 26th, Asexual Awareness Week, October 23rd through the 29th, and Transgender Day of Remembrance, November 20th, and Pansexual Panromantic Pride Day, December 8th. So you see, LGBT people clearly aren't visible enough. All they have is an entire month and a dozen other separate holidays. That's all they got. Along with really every other day on the calendar, because no group of people on Earth today or at any other time in history have been so specially and obsessively and incessantly recognized and celebrated. There has never been such a mismatch between a group's size in the population and their influence over the culture. It's an influence so extreme that society itself is being reorganized as we speak in order to cater to the demands of LGBT activists. Every institution in the country has made LGBT awareness and activism its primary priority. Major corporations like Disney are willingly alienating 99% of their customer base for the sake of LGBT extremism. Our very conception of reality itself, of human nature, of biology, is being reordered and reshaped at the behest of LGBT activists. And the process isn't done because, it's never done. In fact, the White House unveiled today a whole new list of initiatives to coincide with the Trans Day of Visibility. Charlotte Clymer, who's a militant trans activist with the Human Rights Campaign, outlined all of the new policies in a Twitter thread this morning. So I want to read some of this to you. It says, the White House and federal agencies put out a number of wonderful announcements about trans rights a few hours ago. And so I'm so excited to tell you about them because today should be a day about trans and non-binary joy. 1, the State Department announced that starting on April 11th, U.S. citizens will be able to select X as a non-binary gender marker on passports. They are the first federal agency to codify this inclusive policy. Applicants can already self-select without medical documentation. 2, TSA announced that they are updating their body scanners at airport security to move away from tech that has led to trans and non-binary travelers experiencing frequent discrimination, reducing unnecessary and invasive and humiliating body searches. So excited for this. 3, TSA is also working with airlines to implement non-binary markers during the flight booking process, removing gender considerations with validating traveler info at airport security, including non-binary markers during TSA pre-check enrollment and CBP Trusted Traveler. 4, Department of Health and Human Services released a new website that offers resources and guidance for LGBTQ youth and families to counteract several GOP-led state governments removing such resources from their own websites in recent months. And 5, the Department of Education's Office of Safe and Supportive Schools is expanding training with more resources to educate school leaders and communities about the challenges facing trans and non-binary youth and their families. And the list goes on. Clymer lays out actually 13 new trans-affirming initiatives from the White House today and notes that it's only a partial list. But let's focus for a moment on just the first 3 items. You'll now be allowed to put your gender down as X on your passport. Now, the whole point of a passport, of course, is to provide information about your physical identity so that governments can document and keep records of who is coming and going. That's why we have passports. So if they're going to let you put X as your gender on your passport because that's how you feel, whatever the hell it means to feel like an X, they might as well let you change your date of birth to better align with your self-perception. I was born on June 18th, 1986, but sometimes I feel like somebody who was born on April 4th, 1991. Or, August 7th, 1948. I feel like that sometimes. How does that feel? It just feels how I feel. Don't ask me any questions about it. And why can't I change my passport to reflect that? Really, if identity is fluid, then we shouldn't have passports at all. All the passport does at best is capture my identity on the moment when I applied for it and took the picture. But no passport can truly encapsulate the full essence of my ever-evolving being. Now, you might point out that this passport change is total insanity for many reasons, not the least of which being that the rest of the world has not signed on to this. Your passport as an American is meant to get you into other countries, but most other countries in the world, especially in the non-Western world, do not recognize the gender of X. You're going to have a lot of trouble explaining your X gender to the customs agent over in Iran or Tanzania. Has the Biden administration taken that into account? I mean, have they coordinated with every other government in the world to make sure that this is going to be recognized? Well, of course not. These are important practical concerns, but important practical concerns have no weight when stacked up against a trans person's desire to be affirmed. And as established, all of human society must be reorganized for that purpose. It's our highest purpose as a civilization. It's our only purpose. That's why we're all here. Did you know that? It's just to affirm LGBT people. It's the only reason you exist. Now, that explains why all of these changes are also being made to the airport screening process. Now, at least the changes there, if this actually happens, they reduce the airport strip searches, make the screening process less invasive, etc. Those are mostly positive. I mean, that's assuming that this will be the case for everybody and not just trans people. They're making it less invasive for everybody. If that's the case, that's a big if, then I would call that a positive change. But consider the fact that travelers at American airports have been treated like suspected drug smugglers and terrorists for 20 years. I mean, for 20 years, just the simple fact that you want to get on a Delta Airlines flight and, fly to Cincinnati or something, that alone meant that you are suspected of terrorism and they're going to treat you as if they have reasonable suspicion of a crime. So they're going to do all these searches and everything else. So they've been doing that for 20 years. They've been doing pat downs on old ladies in wheelchairs and making kids remove their shoes in case a little 9-year-old is sneaking explosives in his Velcro Nikes. They've been doing all of this for multiple decades, no matter how much we complained about it. But all it took was a few trans people feeling uncomfortable, and suddenly the whole system is being retooled. You had an old lady complains about it, and they say, "Shut up, granny." But then a trans person complains, and they say, "Oh, no, I'm so sorry. Well, here, let's just completely change everything for your sake. I'm sorry to have offended you. Please forgive us." If that's not privilege and power, I don't know what is. Now, those in the audience who are a little bit younger and only became politically aware a few years ago, or maybe people who are older and still only became politically aware a few years ago, may be surprised to learn that LGBT activism, at least in the mainstream, had a much different tone as recently as 8 or 9 years ago. There have always been the militant factions, and now there are only militant factions, but up until recently, the LGBT rights, quote-unquote, movement marched under banners that said things like, "We just want to be left alone," and "What 2 consenting adults do in their bedrooms doesn't affect you," and "We just want tolerance." Now, the more perceptive among us, such as yours truly, recognized at the time that these claims and slogans were nothing but a cover story. But lots of people took it all at face value, believing that the activists really just wanted to live their own lives in peace and nothing more. Those people have been taken by surprise now, shocked to learn that actually what the activists want is not to be left alone or to be tolerated, but to have all of society, our laws, our institutions, our lives, revolve around them and their desires. And now, everyone is finally learning that fact, but it's a little late in the game, unfortunately. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and share it with all your friends.